if I'm challenging myself in the studio, I want to challenge you as well.
Kendrick Lamar is better at rapping than anyone you know is at anything. And what's even more impressive than his tremendous achievements and GOAT status is that for the last 10 years, he's been my favorite artist. His albums are the #1 reason why I started to actually appreciate listening to albums start to finish like I would a movie. And what's equally as fascinating as each of his albums is the constant growth he's made as an artist. And in order to analyze his artistic growth, I'd like to draw a comparison to a world you might not have expected.
I grow, I'm like a chameleon.
Just bringing a pure form of artistry to the music game.
One of my past obsessions was learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube and then learning to speed solve it. There's a pretty great community online that shares information about how to get better at this, which makes it very easy to get into. And something that's always stuck with me from this hyperfixation was when one of the greatest speed cubers of all time, Felix Zemdegs, posted a video talking about his thoughts on improvement, which was based on a video by another speed cuber named M.a.a.d Cubes. And together they talk about this concept of climbing the mountain. This basically breaks the art of getting good down into 2 separate kinds of progress. You move up when you learn new things that increase your capabilities. You move forward when you practice those things, which increases your skill. So for example, you might spend a few weeks learning how to solve the cube in the first place, and that enables you to start practicing solves, which is you attempting to get faster times. Then you would learn the next thing and practice that until you've mastered it, and so on. This distinction is critical because you can't climb the mountain by just solving the cube over and over. You have to learn faster methods and then practice those until you've got them down. And of course, you also can't climb the mountain by only learning new methods. You have to practice them until you've got it down as well as you can. It's the equivalent of a chef learning new recipes and then practicing making those recipes over and over to perfect it. So this is a useful way of understanding improvement, which brings us back to Kendrick Lamar. In studying Kendrick's approach to music, it's clear that he believes challenging himself is essential to growth.
It's really about me challenging myself. I think my excitement in doing music is me feeling like I'm never stagnant.
Which is why this is the perfect framework to understand his artistic evolution. You may like some of his earlier albums more than his later ones, which is fair, they're all fantastic, but you cannot deny that he's continued to learn and execute new things with each and every project. It's pretty well documented that Kendrick makes much more music than he ends up releasing.
How many unreleased songs do you have in your head or that we haven't heard yet?
Thousands. I done lost hard drives.
Damn.
Really?
Are we talking just a huge amount of music that we've never heard before in the process to get to where you need to get to?
Oh yeah, because my process, I have to premeditate and I throw all the paint on the wall I can and I pull from it.
It's like this image of a plate juggler with all the broken plates just behind him hidden from the crowd. I believe this is Kendrick's approach to artistic growth, challenging himself to learn new things he hasn't done before and then practicing the hell out of it by making songs until arriving at the ones that are most resonant and impactful. And with that, let's begin taking a look at Kendrick's journey climbing the mountain. Kendrick started at level 1 like the rest of us. He started writing at 13 when he was inspired by 2 major figures.
What was the moment where you actually started rapping?
What's crazy, my auntie used to play around and just be having us freestyle. We didn't know what we was doing, like 9 years old.
The first person I seen write a rap, that's when my life had changed.
But I got serious with it when I was like 13. Yep, I was inspired by DMX's first album.
Thank God for the album I idolize. It's dark and plus hell is hot. That's the start of this crazy ride.
He would spend years mastering the fundamentals of his craft. Rhyme schemes, flows, clever wordplay, all of which would come in the form of mixtapes under the name K-Dot.
Like bam bam, nigga have 2 grams, nigga pay up. Blam blam, nigga had a black Camry, go to dipset, kill a cam, nigga had a...
His idols and inspiration gave him plenty to study and learn from, increasing his capabilities.
I want to sit down and I want to perfect my craft. I really went after studying all the greats. Biggie, Tupac, Jay-Z, Nas.
And building connections with fellow Black Hippie members J-Rock, Ab-Soul, and Schoolboy Q, as well as TDE's Top Dog and Punch, would all support him in his years of practice.
I've been with Top Dog Entertainment since I was 16, and they basically developed me to where I'm at today. Locked me in a booth and made me study my craft. Not that I want to do it, but they just gave me that extra push,
And we could break this down into a ton of tiny stair steps, but for simplicity's sake, we're going to combine his early career into one big step of mastering the fundamentals. Having nailed down the basics, it was time for Kendrick to challenge himself to increase his capability again. The challenge at this point in his career would be to make his first concept album.
I just basically want to focus it around my generation. That's the hint I can give for the concept.
Each of the songs would be powerful as standalone tracks, but together they would unite to form a cohesive narrative whole that's greater than the sum of its parts, and that would be Section 80. The concept tying all these tracks together is the series of campfire scenes interspersed between the songs.
This is your generation. Who's willing to explain this story?
Which help contextualize the songs that tell the stories of people born in the 80s living in Section 8 housing, hence the name Section 80.
You know why we crack babies, because we born in the 80s, that ADHD crazy.
He was clearly a talented rapper at the time.
The sun is under my feet and I come in peace to compete. I don't run if you athlete, my statistics go up in weeks.
But this project would hint at the talents that he had for overall creative direction too. Making this project would earn Kendrick the respect of West Coast legend Snoop Dogg.
You ain't good at what you do. You great at what you do. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna mean this. Nigga, you got the torch, nigga. You better run with that.
And run with it he did.
I need to separate myself to stand out. I need a better way to take your fans now.
You can just hear in his voice, this guy who's fought his whole life for this moment, and now that he's finally got some wind in his sails, there's no way he's gonna miss his shot.
I need to kill you motherfuckers dead. Yellow tips ain't at your head. I'll be damned if the chopper down now.
It was time for Kendrick to put his whole foot on the gas. Good Kid, M.a.a.d City would raise the bar by being an even more personal and more polished concept album about his upbringing in Compton, California.
This is bigger than music for me. You know what I mean? I done seen the city. I done had uncles pass and cousins pass in the city, you know what I mean? Growing up in Compton, it's real, I would like to say, the one word to describe it is, it's real unpredictable, period. You know, because you never know what type of mischief you're going to get yourself into. You know, you might be going to the liquor store and then that's your life right there. So you got to really watch your ways and watch your steps and how to move and watch the people you hang around.
This album is the first one that comes to mind when we're talking about albums that play like movies. And that's entirely what he was going for. He had been living with this idea for a long time and wisely waited until his skills were up to the task before going for it.
Good Kid, M.a.a.d City was my first book. Yeah. I had that picture for so long, knowing that it'd be my album cover.
Yeah.
I came up with the idea of Good Kid, M.a.a.d City. A lot of irony in that picture. They bottle next to a 40 ounce next to some uncles that's in the gang culture. You know, it said everything about my music.
Aside from making what feels like an even more cinematic, immersive, and complete concept album tied together with a series of skits that set up the following tracks,
K-Dot, get in the car, nigga. Get your freestyles ready. Don't even trip. Just lay back and drink that.
he also definitely got better at writing hit singles too, and you need those to reach larger audiences and attract people to listen to the album in the first place. Swimming Pools was a fantastically designed song from this perspective. It is such a struggle for artists of all kinds to make art that's deep and personal to them while also reaching large audiences, because you want to make what you want, but you do be having to make money though, and sometimes it can feel like an impossible balancing act between success and substance. Kendrick gives us a masterclass in how to do both with Swimming Pools.
Hold up. Headshot.
This was the first Kendrick song me and many people my age ever heard because it was popular, it was played on the radio, it was played in parties, it became a party song and a drinking song. And it is a great drinking song when you only pay attention to the hook.
First you get a swimming pool full of liquor, then you dive in it.
Even though this song is really about Kendrick's upbringing and watching everyone around him struggle with substance abuse, you could fully enjoy this song while you abuse substances. But don't whip out the lyrics unless you're ready to face your demons.
Make an excuse that your relief is in the bottom of a bottle, and the green is in the leaf.
So this album showed both artistic and commercial growth for Kendrick. Many say it's a masterpiece that raised the bar for the new era of hip-hop artists. And while we're talking about raising the bar,
what is competition? I'm trying to raise the bar high. Who's trying to jump and get it?
After dropping Good Kid, M.a.a.d City, Kendrick dropped the infamous Control verse. I mean, Big Sean dropped the song control, but this song that Kendrick was just a feature on would be reclaimed as his own, as more people give a shit about just his verse than the rest of the whole song. Feeling confident in his position after earning the respect of his idols, and wholeheartedly seizing the moment with Good Kid, M.a.d. City, Kendrick felt like it was time to establish himself by bringing the competition to his competition.
One at a time, I line them up and bomb on their mom when she watching the kids. I'm in a destruction mode if the gold exists.
Kendrick reinvigorated the competitive spirit of the lyrical sport by calling out the whole game on a verse.
And that goes for Jamaica, Big Crit Wale, Pusha T, Meek Mills, A$AP Rocky, Drake.
Having a certain mentality of coming in the league where you're literally headhunting everyone, right? Because it's your time to establish yourself and say, no, I belong here, right? And so this, as a result, everybody must go, right?
Yeah, he can relate to that. But it was actually a sign of respect if your name was listed, meaning that you're a worthy participant in this competition.
You know, the control thing, man, like, first thing he says to me is like, yo, thank you so much for just, for understanding and not taking the verse the wrong way.
I like that.
And I was like, Kendrick, you don't know I'm different, bruh. I was like, I'm different. Like, I understand. Like, I listen to rap.
Right.
I understand.
It's the sport of hip hop.
It's the sport. It's the sport of hip hop. And I looked at it like, man, he shouted out his peers.
And keep it hip hop, because that's what he did. He kept it all hip hop. He didn't go personal. He attacked his friends and told them this is friendly competition. And he named them and he told them I'm on y'all. And that's what hip-hop does. That's what it's supposed to do.
This verse made such enormous waves that it even reached the most niche and unexpected audiences. I will never forget playing StarCraft 2 in 2013 when some random in general chat said in all caps, "Kendrick just called out the entire rap game." So I mean it when I say everyone was talking about this. It really is the balls on this guy to make such a claim, to have the audacity. If you're gonna talk this big of a game, you better be able to back it up. If you're gonna talk this big of a game, your next album better be... To Pimp A Butterfly is widely recognized by modern music fans as one of the greatest albums of all time, which is a real head scratcher because most artists may only reach the level Kendrick did with Good Kid, M.a.d. City once. How in the fuck would he continue to raise the bar for himself yet again? He would not be satisfied by making the same thing again. His ambition and artistic integrity would lead him to do the only thing he knows how to do: challenge himself.
I can say that I like a challenge.
To me, the challenge with this project would be going all the way in the artistic direction.
Kendrick Lamar is a real motherfucking artist.
Yeah.
Like, a true definition of the word.
To Pimp A Butterfly was sonically way out of left field, and Kendrick knew it.
Before any record come out, it gotta go through me, and it gotta go through my team first. And we all listening like, what the fuck is this?
Like, especially when you listen to it first all the way through.
Yeah.
It takes a few times to digest.
Oh, seriously.
This would be Kendrick making the poetic masterpiece he's always wanted to make, even if it wasn't radio friendly. Even if there were people who thought this ain't it at first.
It was completely unexpected.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
nobody was expecting you to make that.
Yeah, definitely. And I knew from the jump that was going to be a challenge, for my listeners' ear. But if I'm challenging myself in the studio, I want to challenge you as well.
To Pimp A Butterfly is an amazing encapsulation of the whirlwind the music industry puts him through as he rises in stardom, finding himself abusing his newfound power, feeling like he's abandoned those he left struggling back at home, noticing the exploitative nature of the industry that praises the talents of the butterfly, yet shuns the caterpillar it started out as. He would sub out the more familiar hip-hop beats for a lot of live instrumentation. Combining his talent for flows with this would make creations like For Free, which is a total mindfuck.
Fuck your sources, all distortion. If we fuck, it's more abortion, more divorce, course and portion. My check with less endorsement left me dormant.
And this.
What up? I heard they opened up Pandora's box. I boxed in my land by a landslide.
I have to this day never heard a single song like You.
Loving you is complicated. Loving you is complicated. Loving you is complicated.
This song feels like we're plummeting into the depths of Kendrick's soul in the darkest way as he desperately struggles to cope with the relationships he's destroyed back at home by being absent when they needed him most, feeling like he left them behind for his own success.
You ain't no friend. A friend never leave Compton for profit or leave his best friend, little brother. You promised you watch him.
I think to make a song that's this heavy and being able to identify it with a single letter is kind of brilliant.
And if I told your secrets, the world of no money can't stop a suicidal weakness.
And the polar opposite to this track is I, which is about self-love, and it's very uplifting. And every time I hear this line, it makes me feel like I can pick myself up again. This is an album I revisit basically every year, and I get more out of it each time as I get a little older and wiser. And if you were too repelled by how out there and artsy To Pimp a Butterfly is to enjoy it, you were reminded that Kendrick is that guy when he and competitor-conscious rapper J. Cole would rap over each other's beats for Black Friday. This was great for the fans, but brutal for Cole. It's not like he didn't give it his best, it's still solid. But Kendrick's just a whole different beast, and the beat that Cole let him have is one of his best beats ever.
I kill it so fucking beat if Cole let me. Please, Cole. Eve should have never set the instrumental.
This is when we knew for sure that Kendrick Lamar is the definition of going hard in the paint.
Baby rappers support them, to the grave I deport them. Corporations extort them, I'm snapping off my endorphins, an alien mighty morphin.
Much like with the Control verse, Kendrick's part is definitively favored by fans on both YouTube and SoundCloud, the only places you can listen to it.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
So Kendrick just made another masterpiece of an album, which begs the question, how in the fuck would he do it again? The way I see it, he went full-fledged artist mode onto Pimp a Butterfly, taking the risk of sacrificing commercial viability and popularity in favor of what matters most to true fans of music, the artistry.
Pure artistry.
And now, the challenge would be to prove that he can not only do that, but also go all the way in the other direction and make a hugely popular mainstream album without watering down his artistry. And he did it. Damn was huge. Many of its songs reached billions of streams and became by far his highest selling album.
Yelling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am the greatest rapper alive.
There's some really clever ways that he accomplished this too. Take the lead single and music video that came out before the album. Humble is to Damn what Swimming Pools is to Good Kid, Mad City, but to an even greater extent. Like Swimming Pools, it would be a more accessible, replayable, radio-friendly song that would help attract new listeners to checking out the rest of the album. But Humble would go even more viral. With a phenomenal music video directed by one of the GOATs, Dave Meyers, this video has become a classic moment in Kendrick's career as he re-emerges in 2017 as Kung Fu Kenny.
Kung Fu Kenny now, my resume is real enough for 2 millenniums.
I look at Kung Fu Kenny as a master of the craft now. Now you have the ability to make songs and still have the wordsmith technique and intertwine it and have a composed mentality on how to approach music. Now you're just not connecting with people in the studio or your homies, you're connecting with people around the world universally.
What's really interesting about Humble, though, is that it reads like it was an exercise in minimalism. Like, I'm genuinely curious if Kendrick challenged himself to minimize complexity and syllables, because this song is written at a 3rd grade reading level. The Gunning Fog Index is a tool to measure readability, and if you treat each line of this song as its own sentence, then the song clocks in at this level. And it worked! Kendrick made his most mainstream album on purpose. Him and his team wanted everyone to connect with it, as many people as possible. That's why it was going to be called What Happens on Earth Stays on Earth, but they simplified it to Damn. And while this would become by far his highest selling album of all time, it's still very artistically satisfying. It's an abstract tragedy about being cursed or damned in one way or another, wickedness or weakness.
Is it wickedness? Is it weakness?
Listening to this album normally versus in reverse order is your decision to either live or die.
Are we gonna live or die?
Listening to this album in reverse for the path of wickedness is very dark, ending with this furious pop-off at the end of DNA.
Tell me something, you motherfuckers can't tell me nothing. I'd rather die than to listen to you.
That's triggered by Geraldo Rivera's incredibly ignorant and harmful comment on the news that
this is why I say that hip-hop has done more damage to young African Americans than racism in recent years.
And then he dies in blood, and that guy is on the news misrepresenting his legacy. Damn. And when the world needed him most, he vanished. We eagerly waited 5 years for his next album to come out, and when that time came, how in the fuck would he raise the bar this time? If you've proven you can go full artistic and still have commercial success, if you've proven you can go full commercial success and still be artistically satisfying, where do you go next? Kendrick's whole discography so far has been largely one of tragedy. The challenge with this next album would be breaking the cycle, breaking free of the tortured artist position, and breaking free from the generational cycles of pain he was born into. This is why Kung Fu Kenny would now reemerge as Mr. Morale, the guy doing the hard thing, but the right thing. This album is Kendrick's journey through therapy, starting out with surface-level complaints of the world and slowly progressing deeper and deeper into his own issues that are rooted all the way back to childhood. This album is Kendrick making art for his own health and well-being now, and the concept that ties this album together is much more subtle than the skits in Section 80 and Good Kid, Mad City, or the poem in To Pimp a Butterfly. There's just bits of conversation from Whitney, someone who hardcore fans would know is Kendrick's high school sweetheart and mother of his kids. She's urging him to tell us the truth and to go to therapy.
Tell him, tell him, tell him. Tell him you're...
We also hear steps in the background near the end of a lot of tracks. Open to interpretation, I like to think that he's taking big steps towards healing, among other things. At the end of We Cry Together, a song about a couple arguing and then engaging in the toxic behavior of making up over sex instead of addressing their problems, Whitney tells Kendrick,
Stop tap dancing around the conversation.
He ultimately tells us the truth in Mother I Sober, the guy that we've always known to not really have any addictions. He never really has been a drinker or a smoker. He reveals that all this time he has been hiding an addiction, a sex addiction, one that would lead him to infidelity with his partner Whitney. And so really, we owe this whole album to Whitney, who even in her pain cared more for him to get help. The miracle of this album is breaking the cycle of tragedy and choosing healing. This is arguably the most important album in Kendrick's career because, again, finally it's moving in the direction of self-healing, setting an example by taking a stand for mental health. And if Kendrick chooses him, I'm all here for that. If this is the final message of his discography, I think it's a perfect ending, and I'm all in support of it because he's given us so much already. But if he chooses violence and makes more music, I'm here for that too. So I was just making this video to appreciate Kendrick. What we do on this channel is we appreciate art. And like I said, he's been my favorite artist for the last 10 years. I didn't know that while I was making this, he would diss Drake and J. Cole. But as of me recording this, all that's happened is Kendrick dropped a 1-minute verse. J. Cole replied with a 4-minute song and then apologized for it. He took it back. And Drake's diss has allegedly leaked. And all I can say is, as a fan of Kendrick, he is artistically in a different league than these other two. And if we do get a proper diss track from Kendrick, it's going to be legendary. It's been built up for so long on tracks like The Heart Part 4 and Element and Rich Spirit, and I'm here for it. Until then, you can check out more great art over here and bonus content on the Rock Patreon. And if Kendrick ever makes another album, you better believe he's gonna challenge himself!